Hello. I want to talk about the process of taking your CAD geometry into SketchUp so that we can sculpt the landform into your proposed landform. From there, we can take your SketchUp model into Lumion for the renderings, but we can also create proposed contours in SketchUp and take it back into Civil 3D to perform the earthwork calculation. So here we actually have a design sitting on top of our proposed design sitting on top of our existing landform. And the existing landform is defined by major and minor contours, or index and interval contours, based on whatever the layer name convention may be. The goal is to take only the contours out into SketchUp so we can perform the surface calculations in SketchUp, but I also want to make sure I also have a reference object. So what I was going to do is I want to select just the major and minor contours using the isolate command. And back up here for a second. This isolate command is oftentimes not set correctly when you first use it. I'm going to use this isolate command under the Home tab, right below my layers. Go ahead and click on it, and I want to make sure the settings have it both off on the viewport and also off on the display type. And so when I select on an object, it actually isolates only the objects within that layer that's been selected, or isolates the layer which the object was selected. If I select multiple objects, of course it keeps all those objects that are on those multiple layers. I'm going to take it one step farther, because taking just the contour information into SketchUp, if it doesn't line up correctly, it's very hard to try to realign that into SketchUp. And the way we're going to work with SketchUp is we're not going to have it preserving origin, so we do want to make sure we have something else in there that we can align our elements to. So I went ahead and actually traced out just this building in here and actually put it on its own layer called reference. And so I'm going to use that as my reference or registration object. Therefore, every object that I take across to SketchUp from CAD actually has a reference object. This is the same process that you would do even if you're taking things from Revit to SketchUp, or Revit to other geometry or other modeling programs. So we'll go ahead and select all of this information and use the command W block, which will write a block external to the to this file. I'm going to put it into a folder called W blocks. I've already done it with the contours. I'm going to do it again, so we can go through the process. I'll just say contours 2. Hit save. And what I also want to make sure of is is that this is a version 1 less than the current version of AutoCAD. When I pull this down, it actually was checked there. If it was set on 2018, SketchUp 2018 does not open AutoCAD 2018 files. You're all probably using 2019 in the studios, so it makes sense to pull one version lower here, just because they're not always compatible. Hit OK. Go ahead and hit OK to the AutoCAD 3D or Map 3D error. And that's it for the export from CAD. One thing I do want to do is actually open up that file, because I also noticed here that these contour numbers or these index numbers or labels are in the geometry. We do not want to define a surface from those. Once I have those contours exported, I actually want to open these up to actually fix that label issue. We do not want to take over these labels into SketchUp. So I'm going to go ahead and select that label, isolate it in this file, and we'll go ahead and select out these labels. Because what it would do in SketchUp, it would actually create landforms, or little triangulated landforms, around every one of these elements, and just makes it could make it a very complicated terrain model. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video here, as I'm sure you don't want to watch me select all this, although it is kind of hypnotic. So I'll pause. Once I have all those selected, of course, I'll just delete those. I also want to point out, if you're going through here and trying to clean things up, or trying to find those contour labels, we can go ahead and delete out other extraneous elements. If there's just little space dust in here, we can clean those things up as well. I did notice down here, I'm going to go and re-isolate or un-isolate. There's a lot of information down here that we probably do not need. We don't need to have that much level of detail when we're creating this base. So I'll go ahead and delete out some of that stuff. I'll just leave the major contours in there, and I don't need. Look at the resolution in here. Now we're going to be using a plugin called Topo Shaper, and Topo Shaper does do a pretty good job of simplifying a lot of these things, but we're just going to help SketchUp out just a little bit here by getting rid of this level of detail. Of course, if you needed to model the culverts, we can model those separately as a separate element. I also noticed somewhere on here, there's a crossing contour. I'm not going to spend the time to try to find it now, but it will come back to us when we try to create a surface. Some of these things are even kind of awkward too, but we'll let Topo Shaper clean that up. But if there's any crossing contours, as you know, that's a cardinal rule that you can't do. Contours do not cross. But Civil 3D will, there we go, found it. Civil 3D will bark at this when we try to calculate surfaces. So now that I know it's here, I'm going to go ahead and just pull this away. So now it's not a crossing contour. It's a very steep spot, but it's not a crossing contour. Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and do a save. But I'm going to do a save as. If I just do a save, it may save it into the newer version. I'm going to go ahead and save it back to that older version. We want it to be the older version when we save it. Go ahead and save it. Yes, we want to replace it. Hit, close that dialog, and we're good.